Steve Harvey had hosted thousands of fast money rounds during his years on Family Feud. He had heard funny answers, strange answers, and occasionally inappropriate answers. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened during a fast money round on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in March 2025. A husband was about to give an answer so shocking, so brutally honest, that it would leave Steve Harvey completely speechless. The answer would reveal a truth about his marriage that his wife had no idea he felt. It would stop the game cold, create one of the most uncomfortable moments in game show history, and spark a national conversation about honesty in marriage. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these powerful moments that remind us that sometimes the truth comes out in the most unexpected ways. The Bradford family had just won their main game against a tough competing family. They were excited and energetic as they prepared for fast money. Tom Bradford, 41, a high school history teacher, would go first. His wife Sarah, 39, a dental hygienist, would answer second. They had been married for 16 years and had 3 teenage children. From all appearances, they were a solid, happy couple. Tom approached the fast money podium with confidence. Sarah stood backstage with headphones on, unable to hear the questions or Tom's answers. Steve began the round with his usual energy. The first few questions went normally. Tom gave reasonable answers about workplace complaints and vacation destinations. Then Steve read the fourth question. Name something your wife does that you wish she would stop doing. It was a standard Family Feud question designed to get relatable, slightly humorous answers. Steve expected Tom to say something like nagging, or spending too much money, or leaving lights on. What Tom actually said would change everything. Tom and Sarah Bradford had met in college at Ohio State University. Tom was studying history education and Sarah was in the dental hygiene program. They met at a campus coffee shop where Sarah worked part-time. Tom came in every morning for coffee before his 8 a.m. class. Sarah always had his order ready when he walked in. They started talking, then dating, and eventually fell in love. After graduation, they got married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. The first few years of their marriage were happy. They were building their careers, buying their first home, and planning their future. When Sarah got pregnant with their first child, Tom was thrilled. He had always wanted to be a father. He loved children and teaching, and he looked forward to raising a family with Sarah. Their daughter Emma was born, followed 2 years later by their son Jake, and then 2 years after that by their youngest daughter Lily. Tom threw himself into fatherhood with the same dedication he brought to teaching. He coached his kids' sports teams. He helped with homework every night. He attended every school play, every band concert, every parent-teacher conference. He was the dad who volunteered for field trips and organized neighborhood block parties. Everyone who knew Tom said he was an amazing father. He was patient and kind and present. His children adored him. But somewhere along the way, Tom and Sarah's marriage had changed. It happened so gradually that neither of them noticed at first. With 3 children, 2 careers, and the demands of daily life, their relationship had shifted from romantic partnership to functional co-parenting. They were efficient roommates managing a household together rather than husband and wife. They communicated about schedules and bills and children's needs, but they rarely talked about their feelings, their dreams, or their relationship. Tom couldn't remember the last time he and Sarah had gone on a date, just the two of them. They hadn't been intimate in over 6 months. They slept in the same bed but rarely touched. Sarah would fall asleep watching her phone. Tom would read until he got tired. They would wake up, get the kids ready for school, go to work, come home, make dinner, help with homework, and collapse into bed. The next day they would do it all again. It was a routine that worked for managing a family but left no room for nurturing a marriage. Tom had tried to address the distance growing between them. He had suggested date nights, but Sarah always said she was too tired. He had tried to initiate intimacy, but Sarah would say she had an early morning or wasn't in the mood. He had tried to have conversations about their relationship, but Sarah would deflect, saying everything was fine and he was overthinking things. Eventually, Tom stopped trying. He threw himself into his work and his children and told himself this was just what long-term marriage looked like. But Tom was lonely. He felt invisible in his own marriage. Sarah treated him like a coworker rather than a partner. She never asked about his day in any meaningful way. She never seemed interested in his thoughts or feelings. Their conversations were purely transactional. Can you pick up Jake from practice? Did you pay the electric bill? Emma needs new shoes. Tom felt like he was a utility in Sarah's life rather than a husband she loved and desired. The thing that bothered Tom most was something he had never told anyone. Sarah was constantly on her phone. Not just occasionally checking messages, but constantly scrolling through social media, texting friends, watching videos. During dinner, Sarah's phone would be next to her plate and she would glance at it between bites. While watching TV together, Sarah would be on her phone, barely paying attention to the show. Even during the rare conversations they had, Sarah would be looking at her phone while Tom talked. Tom had mentioned the phone issue to Sarah multiple times. "Can you put your phone down during dinner?" he would ask. Sarah would apologize and put it down, but 5 minutes later it would be back in her hand. "Can we have a phone-free evening?" he would suggest. Sarah would agree, but then her phone would buzz and she would just quickly check this one thing and then be absorbed in it for 20 minutes. Tom felt like he was competing with a device for his wife's attention and losing. What Tom didn't know was that Sarah was deeply unhappy too. She felt overwhelmed by the demands of work, children, and household management. She felt like she carried the mental load of the entire family. She was the one who remembered doctor's appointments, school events, birthday parties, and grocery lists. She felt exhausted all the time. Her phone wasn't about avoiding Tom. It was her only escape from the constant demands on her attention. When she scrolled through social media, she wasn't thinking about dishes or laundry or who needed to be where when. She was just existing for a few minutes without anyone needing anything from her. But Tom and Sarah never had these conversations. They never shared their real feelings with each other. They both assumed the other was fine with how things were. They both believed this was just how marriage worked after 16 years and 3 kids. So they continued their routine, two lonely people living parallel lives, raising children together but barely connecting with each other. They loved their children fiercely. They managed their household efficiently. But they had stopped being married in any meaningful sense. The Family Feud opportunity came about through Sarah's coworker who had connections with the show's casting team. "You should apply," her coworker said. "It's fun, you could win money, and it's a great family experience." Sarah thought it sounded like a fun distraction. Tom agreed because it would make Sarah happy and because he thought maybe a shared experience might help them reconnect. So they applied with their extended family and were selected to compete. Tom stood at the Fast Money podium. The bright lights were hot. The audience was energetic. Steve Harvey stood with his card ready. Tom had answered 3 questions successfully. He was feeling good, confident they could win the $20,000. Then Steve read the 4th question. "Name something your wife does that you wish she would stop doing." In the split second before Tom answered, multiple thoughts ran through his mind. He could say something safe and generic. He could say snoring or hogging the covers, and everyone would laugh. But Tom was tired of pretending, tired of keeping his feelings locked inside, tired of feeling invisible in his own marriage. And in that moment, standing on a game show stage with cameras rolling and millions of people watching, Tom decided to tell the truth. Without hesitation, without thinking about the consequences, Tom answered, "Ignoring me for her phone." His voice was clear and firm. It wasn't said with anger. It was said with the weariness of a man who had been holding in his feelings for too long. The studio fell silent. The audience didn't laugh. They didn't applaud. They sat in shocked stillness. Steve Harvey's mouth dropped open. He looked at Tom, then looked at his card, then looked back at Tom. "Say that again?" Steve asked, clearly not sure he had heard correctly. Tom, realizing what he had just said and that there was no taking it back now, repeated his answer. "Ignoring me for her phone." "She's always on her phone. During dinner, during conversations, always. I feel like I'm competing with social media for my wife's attention." Steve Harvey stood completely still for several seconds. This was not a funny answer. This was not an awkward answer. This was real pain being expressed on a game show stage. Steve looked at the production team, unsure how to proceed. He looked back at Tom, and in that moment Steve saw something in Tom's face that made him understand this wasn't a joke or an attempt to be funny. This was a man telling his truth, perhaps for the first time. Steve took a breath and said, "Tom, you know your wife is backstage about to come out here and hear this, right?" Tom nodded, his face showing a mix of regret and relief. "I know I probably shouldn't have said it like this, but it's the truth, and maybe it needed to be said." Steve shook his head slowly. "Man, you just opened a door you can't close. Let's see if your answer is on the board." The board revealed that Tom's answer was indeed there. Number 3 answer with 18 points. The audience gave a weak, uncomfortable applause. Tom finished the Fast Money round, but his focus was gone. He gave mediocre answers to the remaining question, barely registering what Steve was asking. All Tom could think about was Sarah hearing his answer. Sarah, who had no idea how much her phone usage bothered him. Sarah, who was about to come out on stage and find out that her husband had just told millions of people that she ignored him. Tom had scored 152 points. Sarah needed 48 points for them to win, but Tom wasn't thinking about winning anymore. Sarah came out from backstage, her headphones off, smiling and energetic. She hugged Tom and stood at the podium ready to play. Steve looked at her, then at Tom, then back at her. Sarah, before we start, I need to ask you something. Do you use your phone a lot? Sarah laughed, thinking this was just Steve's usual banter. I mean, yeah, doesn't everyone? Steve nodded slowly. Okay, let's play fast money. He read through Sarah's questions quickly, clearly uncomfortable with what was coming. Sarah gave decent answers, scoring points on most questions. When they got to the fourth question, Steve paused before revealing what Tom had said. All right, Sarah, the question was name something your wife does that you wish she would stop doing. You said snoring. Let's see what Tom said. Steve looked genuinely pained as he revealed Tom's answer. Tom said ignoring him for your phone. Sarah's smile disappeared instantly. What? She said, her voice barely a whisper. Steve explained, trying to soften the blow, but knowing there was no good way to do this. Tom said that you're always on your phone and he feels like he's competing for your attention. Sarah turned to look at Tom, her face showing hurt and confusion. You said that on national television. Instead of talking to me about it privately, you told millions of people that I ignore you. Tom looked miserable but nodded. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it like this. But Sarah, we don't talk. Every time I try to bring things up, you say everything's fine. So yes, I said it here. Maybe that was wrong, but at least now you know how I feel. The audience was completely silent. This had gone from a game show to a marriage counseling session. Steve looked at the production team. We need to finish this round, but then we're taking a break. Sarah completed her fast money answers mechanically, no longer caring about the game. They had won the $20,000. Normally, this would be a moment of celebration. But Sarah stood stiffly, not looking at Tom, while Steve announced their victory. The applause was hesitant and awkward. Steve made an unprecedented decision. Instead of moving on to the next family, he had chairs brought to the stage. Tom, Sarah, sit down. We need to talk about this. The audience settled in, sensing they were about to witness something real and important. Steve sat across from the couple, his expression serious. All right, let's address what just happened. Tom, you just told the world that your wife ignores you for her phone. That's a heavy thing to say publicly. Explain yourself. Tom took a deep breath. Steve, I love my wife. I've loved her for 16 years, but somewhere along the way, we stopped being married and started being roommates who raise kids together. Sarah is on her phone constantly. During dinner, during conversations, even when I'm talking directly to her. I feel invisible. I feel like I don't matter as much as whoever is texting her or whatever she's scrolling through. I've tried to talk to her about it. She apologizes and puts the phone down for 5 minutes, then picks it right back up. He continued, emotion creeping into his voice. I work all day teaching other people's kids. I come home and help with homework and dinner and bedtime. I do everything a husband and father should do. But I feel like Sarah doesn't even see me anymore. She looks at her phone more than she looks at me. We haven't had a real conversation in months. We haven't been intimate in even longer. I'm lonely in my own marriage, and I don't know how to fix it because every time I try to talk about it, I'm told everything is fine, but everything is not fine. Steve turned to Sarah. What do you say to that? Sarah's eyes were filled with tears, but there was also anger in her expression. What do I say? How about that my husband just humiliated me on national television? How about that instead of having this conversation with me privately like an adult, he decided to tell America about our marriage problems? Yes, I use my phone. But you know what, Tom? I'm exhausted. I work full-time. I manage everything for this family. I remember every appointment, every deadline, every birthday. Do you know the mental load I carry? Sarah's voice was rising. My phone is the only time I get to turn off my brain and not think about who needs what and when. It's not about ignoring you. It's about having 10 minutes where I'm not someone's wife or mother or employee. It's about having some space to breathe. And maybe if you actually understood how much pressure I'm under, you'd understand why I need that escape. She was crying now, but she kept going. You say we don't talk, but Tom, when have you asked me how I'm really doing? When have you noticed that I'm drowning? Steve held up his hand. Okay, we're getting somewhere. You're both hurting. You're both feeling unseen. Tom feels invisible because of the phone. Sarah feels overwhelmed and like her phone time is the only break she gets. You're both right and you're both wrong. He looked at Tom. Tom, you're right that constant phone use during couple time is disrespectful, but you're wrong to air this out on television without warning. That's not fair to Sarah. Steve turned to Sarah. Sarah, you're right that you need breaks and space, but if your husband is telling you he feels ignored, you can't dismiss that. You can't say everything's fine when clearly it's not. Your phone might be an escape for you, but it's a barrier between you and your husband, and that barrier is damaging your marriage. Steve leaned back. So here's the question. Do you two want to save this marriage, or are you content to just keep coexisting until the kids leave home? Tom spoke first. I want to save it. I didn't say what I said to hurt Sarah or to embarrass her. I said it because I'm desperate for her to hear me. Sarah, I love you. I want us back. I want to feel like your husband again, not just the guy you live with who helps with the kids. Sarah wiped her tears. I want to save it too, But Tom, I need you to understand that I'm struggling. I'm not on my phone because I don't love you. I'm on my phone because I'm overwhelmed and I don't know how else to cope. I need help. I need us to figure out how to balance everything without me feeling like I'm carrying the entire family on my shoulders." Steve nodded. "Good. That's honest. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to marriage counseling, not next month, not when you have time, this week. You're going to find a therapist and you're going to start doing the work to rebuild your marriage, because what you have right now isn't a marriage, it's a business partnership. And if you don't change course, you're going to wake up in 10 years when the kids are gone and realize you're living with a stranger." Steve continued, his voice softer now. "Tom, you need to step up more with the mental load. If Sarah is managing everything, offer to take things off her plate. Actually take them, not just say you will. Learn the kids' schedules, remember the appointments. Notice when things need to be done without being asked. Give Sarah real breaks where she doesn't have to manage or think or plan." He turned to Sarah. "And Sarah, you need to put the phone down, not forever. But during dinner, during conversations, during time that should be about connecting with your husband. Create boundaries around your phone time so Tom knows when you're available and when you need space." The audience applauded. Steve stood up. "I'm going to do something I've never done. I'm going to give you my personal number. I want updates. I want to know that you're doing the work, because millions of people just watched this moment and they're going to be invested in your story. Show them that marriages can be saved when both people are willing to be honest and do the hard work." Tom and Sarah both nodded, still processing everything that had just happened. The Family Feud episode aired 6 weeks after it was taped. The clip of Tom's answer and the subsequent conversation went viral immediately. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed over 30 million times across social media platforms. The comment sections were filled with people sharing their own experiences. Thousands of spouses admitted they felt just like Tom, invisible and competing with phones for their partner's attention. Thousands more admitted they were like Sarah, using phones as an escape from overwhelming responsibilities. Tom and Sarah Bradford became unexpected symbols of modern marriage struggles. They received thousands of messages from couples who saw themselves in the Bradford story. Some messages were supportive. Others were critical, saying they should have kept their problems private. But the overwhelming response was gratitude. People were grateful that someone had finally said out loud what so many were feeling. That modern marriages were struggling under the weight of technology, work, children, and life, and that many couples had forgotten how to actually connect with each other. Tom and Sarah did go to marriage counseling, starting just 3 days after the taping. Their first session was brutal. The therapist made them put their phones in a basket at the door. For the first time in years, Tom and Sarah sat across from each other with no devices, no children, and no distractions. They were forced to actually talk to each other. They were forced to look at each other. It was uncomfortable and painful and necessary. In counseling, they discovered that their problems went deeper than phone usage. Sarah revealed that she felt Tom never really saw the work she did managing the household. Tom revealed that he felt Sarah had stopped being attracted to him and was using exhaustion as an excuse to avoid intimacy. They both admitted they had stopped dating each other, stopped trying to impress each other, stopped prioritizing their relationship. They had put the children first, which was good, but they had put their marriage last, which was destroying them. The therapist gave them homework. They had to have one phone-free dinner per week where they actually talked about their days, their feelings, and their dreams. They had to have a date night twice a month with no discussion of children or household management. They had to each list 3 things they needed from the other and then work on providing those things. It was hard work. There were setbacks, there were arguments, but slowly they started connecting again. 3 months after the episode aired, Steve Harvey had Tom and Sarah back on his talk show for a follow-up interview. The change in them was visible. They sat close together, occasionally touching hands or shoulders. They looked at each other when speaking. The distance that had been evident on the Family Feud stage was gone. Steve asked them how they were doing. Tom answered first. "It's been hard. Marriage counseling is no joke. We've had to confront things we've been avoiding for years, but we're better. We're actually talking to each other now." Sarah put limits on her phone time. "I've stepped up with managing family schedules and household tasks. We're working on it." Sarah added, "I was angry at Tom for a long time about how he revealed his feelings. But our therapist helped me understand that Tom had tried to tell me multiple times and I wasn't hearing him. I was dismissing his concerns. So yes, he shouldn't have said it on TV, but I should have listened when he tried to tell me privately. We both failed each other. Now we're trying to do better." She paused. "And honestly, putting my phone down during dinner and conversations has been good for me too. I feel more present. I'm enjoying my family more instead of just managing them." Tom shared something that resonated with the audience. "I realized that I wasn't just competing with Sarah's phone. I was competing with a culture that tells us we need to be constantly connected, constantly available, constantly consuming content. Sarah was scrolling through social media, seeing everyone else's highlight reels and feeling inadequate. She was in mom groups where women competed over whose kids were more accomplished. She was getting work emails at all hours. The phone wasn't just an escape. It was another source of pressure, so we both needed to change our relationship with technology. Sarah explained the changes they had made. We have phone-free zones now. No phones in the bedroom. No phones during meals. No phones during family time on weekends. We have specific times when we check our phones and respond to messages. It was hard at first. I felt anxious without my phone constantly in my hand. But now I feel lighter, I sleep better, I'm more present with my kids, and Tom and I are actually connecting again. Tom nodded. We're dating again, we go out twice a month, just the two of us. We talk about things other than bills and kids. We remember why we fell in love in the first place. The interview sparked a nationwide movement. Couples started implementing phone-free times in their homes. Therapists reported an increase in couples seeking help before their marriages reached crisis points. The phrase, "Are you pulling a Tom Bradford?" became shorthand for honestly expressing feelings that had been bottled up. Phone manufacturers even started including features to track screen time and set limits, marketing them as tools to help people be more present with their families. Tom and Sarah wrote a book together about their experience titled, "Put Down the Phone, Pick Up Your Marriage." The book wasn't just about phone usage. It was about how modern couples navigate the competing demands of work, children, technology, and relationship needs. They shared their strategies for staying connected, their setbacks and successes, and interviews with other couples facing similar challenges. The book became a bestseller, striking a chord with millions of couples who felt they were drifting apart. 1 year after the Family Feud episode, Tom and Sarah did a final follow-up interview with Steve Harvey. Steve asked them the question everyone wanted answered. "Are you glad Tom said what he said on my show?" Sarah laughed. "You know, at the time I wanted to kill him. I was humiliated and angry, but looking back, yes, I'm glad, because we weren't going to have that conversation otherwise. We were going to keep sleepwalking through our marriage until we woke up one day and didn't recognize each other anymore. Tom's answer on your show was a wake-up call we both needed." Tom agreed. "I'm not saying my method was right. I'm not recommending that other people air their marriage issues on game shows." The audience laughed. "But I am saying that honesty, even uncomfortable honesty, is necessary. If you're unhappy in your marriage, you have to say something. Don't wait until resentment builds for years. Don't assume your spouse knows what you need. Tell them, and if they're not hearing you, find a way to make them hear you. Just maybe find a way that doesn't involve national television." More laughter from the audience. Steve reflected on the experience. "When Tom gave that answer, I thought we were just witnessing a marriage imploding on television, but what we actually witnessed was a marriage being saved. 'Cause that honest moment, as uncomfortable as it was, forced you both to confront problems you've been avoiding. Sometimes marriages need a crisis to wake both people up. I'm just glad the crisis happened on my stage where I could push you both toward getting help rather than letting you just suffer in silence for another decade." The Bradford family's children also benefited from their parents' renewed commitment to their marriage. Tom and Sarah explained to their teenagers what had happened and why it mattered. Emma, their oldest, shared in the book how seeing her parents work on their marriage taught her what to look for in her own future relationships. "I learned that marriage takes work," Emma wrote. "I learned that you can't take your spouse for granted. I learned that technology can be a barrier to real connection. But most importantly, I learned that problems can be fixed if both people are willing to do the hard work." Tom and Sarah started speaking at marriage conferences and church groups. They shared their story with brutal honesty, not sugar-coating the problems they had faced or the work it took to fix them. Tom would talk about feeling invisible and how he should have insisted on counseling years earlier instead of letting resentment build. Sarah would talk about the mental load of managing a family and how she used her phone as an escape rather than asking for help. Together, they emphasized that most marriage problems are fixable if addressed early and honestly. 5 years after that fast money moment, the Bradford marriage was stronger than it had ever been. They had survived a public crisis and come out better on the other side. They had learned to communicate, to prioritize each other, to balance technology with real connection, and to keep their marriage healthy even while raising a family and managing busy careers. Their story became a case study in marriage counseling programs, an example of how honesty and hard work can save even marriages that seem to be failing. Steve Harvey often talked about Tom's answer in his comedy routines and motivational speeches. "That man stood on my stage and told the truth that millions of husbands feel but never say. He said his wife ignores him for her phone. And you know what? Millions of wives realized they were doing the same thing. Millions of husbands realized they had the same complaint. That one honest answer started a conversation that needed to happen. It reminded people that your spouse needs your attention more than your phone does. That marriage requires actual presence, not just physical proximity. The lasting impact of Tom's answer went beyond individual marriages. It sparked research into the effects of smartphone usage on relationship satisfaction. Studies confirmed what Tom had experienced. Excessive phone use during couple time correlated with decreased relationship satisfaction and increased feelings of neglect. This research led to recommendations from relationship experts about creating phone-free times and spaces in homes. It became standard advice in premarital counseling to discuss technology boundaries before marriage. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We share these powerful real-life moments because they teach us crucial lessons about relationships and communication. Tom Bradford's fast money answer was uncomfortable and unexpected, but it was also honest. And that honesty saved his marriage. Whether you're the spouse who feels ignored or the spouse who doesn't realize how disconnected you've become, this story is a reminder to put down your phone and look at the person sitting across from you. Have the hard conversations before they become crises. Prioritize your marriage before it dies from neglect. And remember that your spouse married you, not your phone. They deserve your attention, your presence, and your love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for watching, and remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present with the people you love.